I'm on site.
Okay, so on to like serious things. Now let's talk serious business now, not these people chowing yash. So, excuse me. I wanted to talk about the recent scandal with some of the private institutions that have been deregistered. So, I've got an article here by Business Tech where it's speaking about Educor. So, Educor is this group holding that owns some private institutions. Demlin, City Varsity, Lyceum, I don't know how to say it, Lyceum, whatever it is. And so apparently they've been deregistered, so their accreditation has pretty much been removed due to their failure to submit their financial reports and a whole bunch of other shit as well, you know. So I'm going to read you guys the article by Business Tech and then we'll just discuss real quick. All right, so here's the article. It's written on 26th. So it says Demlin, City Varsity, and other colleges deregistered in South Africa. What happens next? Okay. The Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, has slammed the Educor group for inaction after the group's Demlin, City Varsity, Isesa City Campus, and Lyceum colleges were deregistered by department last week. In the Government Gazette, published on 22nd March, the department announced that the deregistration of the Educor-owned institution because the group did not provide the required audited financial statements for the annual reports of 2021 and 2022, which is a contravention of the Higher Education Act. So apparently the act says that, you know, if you are a private, a private institution, you've got to submit your audited financial reports, which makes sense, you know. You need to see that there's no shady businesses going on in your private campus. I actually found this out like quite a while ago. Did you know that in South Africa, you can't actually start a privately owned university? So all universities in South Africa are accredited by the government. And in order for it to be a university, it has to be started pretty much by the government. So if you want to start your own private you can only call it an institution. Can't call it a university. So that's interesting. The article goes on to say this is not the first time that the Educor failed to submit its financial reports. In 2022, the private education supplier was reprimanded and threatened that it would be deregistered after failing to submit its 2020 financial report. So these niggas, they warned them in 2022, like, bro, you guys are not doing your shit. Why not submitting? What's happening with the money, you know? And I guess they just ignored it. 2020 didn't submit. 2021 didn't submit. 2022 didn't submit. So I wonder if they submitted for 2023 because this is only happening now, or because, I mean, the 2023 financial year actually just ended, 1st of March, excuse me. So I wonder if they probably didn't submit for 2023 as well. So that's insane, man. The article also goes on to say that these are some of the complaints and some of the addition to the evidence. So it says, in addition to failing to submit evidence of their financial viability to the department, the 4 Educor brands can be deemed as dysfunctional, mainly measured against the daily complaints and grievances received from students, most of which remained unresolved. Yikes. So these are some of the complaints that they received from all these Educor groups. Poor quality of teaching and learning, lack of proper administrative support, poor quality of staff, corruption and bribery, lack of response for requests for students, lack of professionalism, exploitation of poor students, non-payment of staff salaries, and underpayment of staff salaries. So not only were sometimes they will underpay you, sometimes they just don't pay you at all. I don't give a fuck, man. My gosh. So the article goes on to say, Nzimande said that among various other concerning issues, one of the main complaints I remember receiving was that the students were given marks based on exam scripts that were never marked because the lecturers were no longer at work. So you write an exam, you hand in your exam, nobody marks your exam, but you still get a mark. I'm sure they mock you based on your handwriting. Let's look at his handwriting. This one, no, it looks like he wrote the right things. You can see his E's and his I's, they are correct. 100%. Oh my God, it's a fucking shit show, man. Anyway, so it goes on to say, Additionally, Nzimani said that the group had been misleading regarding its enrollment figures, claiming to have 50,000 students across the 4 institutions. However, figures indicate that it sits just over 13,000 in reality. Yo, imagine, you say you have 50,000 students, meanwhile, it's not even 20 bands of them, bro. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. And then it goes on to say, the minister said that with the information at its disposal, it would be unconscionable to maintain the registration status of these 4 private institutions and allow his department to become complicit in gross governance and compliance failures. That's true. That's true. I think this was very, on the nose for the Department of Education. I think it's good that they saw this, that was happening. I don't know if maybe deregistration was the best solution. I wonder if they could have just, found a different way to sort of try and fix this issue. Because now what happens to all those students who are registered and all of that, and also what happens to the qualifications of previous students, because I know people who went to Demlin and, they got qualifications. So what happens to their qualification? Is it null and void? Is it, is it not accredited anymore? So that's interesting. Anyway, so now what has to happen now is that the department has deregistered the private institutions, and they must notify the students within about 2 weeks of cancellation of registration. They must provide each student with their academic transcripts. They must reimburse or compensate students due to the institution's closure, and they must arrange for students to complete their programs at equivalent institutions. So now this institution or this group that is being deregistered because they're dysfunctional and they're just not doing shit and they're not working properly, they now have to be in charge of taking their students and finding them other schools. You can just imagine how it's going to just fucking be a mess, because you guys are being deregistered because you guys are just basically incompetent. Now we're trusting you guys to find us other schools to go to. Man, I feel for these students. It's going to be such a fucking hectic battle. So, lucky it's it's pretty late into the year, if we're being honest. We're already on the 4th month. So it's going to be such a hurdle. And yeah, fuck, man. And it's a private institution. So does that mean they have to find them private, institutions to go to? Because applications for university and stuff, those are all closed. So it's not like they're going to put them into university. So now they got to go into private institutions. Who's going to fund that? So it's a whole thing. And it's just really sad to see these fucking groups and stuff like that. But anyway, hopefully that shit will get sorted out. And yeah, but that was a really interesting story I saw. And I want to play the interview. So SABC is very spicy. So SABC went to the ops of Educor, who is obviously Boston City College, the CEO of Boston City College, and they wanted to get his take on what just happened. And a nigga flamed them, bro, because obviously he's the op, so he's the competitor, so he definitely flamed them. So let's just watch this interview real quick.
So I think there are 2 aspects that we need to deal with. One is the regulatory framework within which private higher education institutions operate in South Africa. And the second aspect that we probably need to look at is some practical advice for the students who have now found themselves in this difficult situation. So,
yeah, exactly. Because I feel like at the end of the day, that's really all that matters now. It's just the students, for this Educor group, whatever. But the students, what matters now, they need to find new schools. They need to find, somewhere where they can go and finish their qualifications and all that, because what do you do now?
If we start with the former, South Africa has a very robust regulatory environment. And within this environment, the institution has to, first of all, obtain accreditation from the Council for Higher Education and thereafter register with the Department of Higher Education. Now, that in itself is a highly regulated process and has a lot of checks and balances to ensure governance and to ensure compliance with the right standards of teaching and learning. One of those compliance standards is the submission of annual financial statements. And in terms of the minister's announcement today, he stated that DAMNet had not complied with the aspect of submitting annual financial statements, and that's what probably led to the de-accreditation. However, I want to stress that that's only one of the requirements that an institution has to comply with in order to remain accredited. Most of the others really relate to teaching and learning, student satisfaction, qualifications of academics, etc., etc. Now, many institutions, such as ourselves, for example, in addition to the South African regulatory framework, have also chosen to obtain outside accreditation from third parties, such as the British Accreditation Council.
Nigga's already plugging his school. It's like us we do things the right way. Us we do things the right way.
which ensures that we also have, in addition to governance and compliance of those standards, it also ensures that we have a
Okay.
Now that Uber
All right, so I think that's the best place to stop because I'm trying to watch them ads. But yeah, so that's the whole situation with the whole Dimlin and the whole Educor group. Really fucking a tragedy. Sad. And because we don't really have like major private institutions in South Africa. I can think of Monash used to be really good, and then the IIE left from them, some shit like that. And then there's that one that used to be Pearson's. What is it now? Anyway, but yeah, we don't really have like many good, recognized private institutions. It's crazy that, when you go to high school, the public schools are seen as like a lesser form of education, for lack of better phrasing. And the private school is where you get the better education. But when you go to tertiary, it's actually reversed, because the public universities are the ones that provide the better education compared with the private institutions, So, man, it's a whole thing. But yeah, that's the whole story. I think I want to touch on, well,